I know I am the Latino guy, so I should know a lot about the topic that we're going to talk about. But guys, shamefully for my family, I don't like soccer. Yes, boo, I know. So this is all news for me. But apparently, in Brazil, during soccer games, there is a kind of preaching amongst players. And 1 second, the name of the guy was Jao. I wanted to say Leite, but I was corrected. He's Joao Leche, and he believed that he has a mission assigned to him by Jesus Christ to spread God's word among other football players. So this started in December 1982 when this guy decided to randomly approach an opponent before the game started, and he said, Jesus loves you, and I have a gift for you. And he just gave him a Bible. And this story, or this is how the article starts, please check it in the description. It's a BBC article, very interesting one. And in order to explain why I am not surprised about this, I have to tell you a little bit about Brazil. Brazil is a very, I don't want to say extremely religious place, but it's a very religious country. I'm sure that you have heard about Bolsonaro. He is a guy who uses a lot of religious talk during his speech, and that's why he was chosen the president of the country. Oh, it's terrible. And over there, they have something called mega churches. These churches are huge, but I mean huge. Please Google them, search for some pictures about them. You will see that they are bigger than the biggest mall that you can imagine in the USA. They are so big that they have been spreading to the USA, to some countries in Africa. So, where am I going with this? That Brazil itself is very religious, and religion is very important over there. And the second thing that is almost a religion for them, that is extremely powerful, is soccer. So I am not surprised that both things have been joined into this weird mixture, where this guy Leche, he's just giving Bibles away, in trying to indoctrinate other soccer players into their religion. It all begins with a Formula One driver who started competing with "Jesus saves" slogans in his cars. So this guy decided to do the same with Chris saves on his shirt. But the Brazilian Football Association banned that behavior and threatened he and his team with points deduction. So for him, that obviously was almost persecution, and it was very, very hard for him, a very hard moment in his life. But what would you know? Now he's being very successful, and there is a whole movement that is gaining more and more strength nowadays. I know that, you had a lot to talk about this, right?
Yeah, I mean, this article and this whole story is so interesting because it kind of covers that intersection of sports and how it relates to culture and how that influences politics and religion, and it's all sort of wrapped up in this bubble of that classic Christian persecution complex. I mean, first of all, I think it was kind of absurd that he described a very difficult time for him, being when he was just told that he couldn't, deface his uniform with his own personal religious beliefs. But of course, when you're an evangelical Christian, then not being able to openly share your religious beliefs everywhere, even with a third party, like non religious organization involved in sort of promoting it, that in and of itself is persecution. Um, I think that the big problem is that these beliefs that should be personal to people are inherently not once you're an evangelical. And it's so interesting because I believe that this whole story kind of started in the 80s and the 90s. And then you take it to where we are today, where you're right, Brazil has, soccer is a very, very important part of their culture. And so naturally, I feel like this whole movement had to have something to do with where we are today, where Brazil has a large evangelical population who mostly voted for Bolsonaro, who, I don't know if I'm allowed to share my personal political beliefs here, but I personally not speaking for the ACA, believe that he's kind of a tyrant and a moron. So, surprise, surprise. Quite a few parallels there in Brazil with what we've seen here in this nation.
For sure. And
What are
Kelley,
your
you had
Agree.
Kelley, you had something kind of interesting you had pointed out right before the show started. What did you find?
Well, I'm not. I'm with you, Teo. I'm not a big soccer football fan, but I found a lot of things in the article interesting. And one Genevieve brought up was this superiority, and then on the opposite side, this persecution complex that many Christians have, and it's so illustrated in this story where the players going out on the field and handed Bibles out to members of the other team. And when they won the first championship, saying that they knew they were going to win because God would never lose to somebody who believes in Buddha, because the goalkeeper on the other team was a Buddhist. And then that's where you get that superiority thing. And then that persecution happens when they were collecting the championship. They were told they couldn't wear evangelical T-shirts with evangelical sayings on them, so they decided to drape them over their shoulder because the rules don't apply to them because Jesus is on their side, right? And I just saw that it was really illustrative, and I thought it was funny that since they became more evangelical with the team, that they pushed this, even not letting better players join the team because they weren't religious enough, is that they did win a World Cup 8 years later, but they haven't won one since. And they're still working off this, making the evangelical part of the team more important than the skill part. So I think maybe they might want to reconsider that. And maybe if they want to win another World Cup, is to start getting people who can actually play instead of that believe in Jesus.
Yeah. I thought it was a really, really cool kind of journey with this small group of people that started this out, so long ago. And yeah, I mean, it said at one of the games at the end, there were 4 people, that got together and prayed. And by the time, we had finished that paragraph, they were saying a few years later, and it's practically the whole team. I mean, it was really, really interesting to see, I mean, how much power they got so quick. And I guess one of the things that always jumps out to me in these instances is when any particular ideology gains control, what do they do with that power? And I think it kind of seems like we all of us here kind of felt like they weren't exactly going the right route with that. What do y'all think?
Definitely.
Yeah, no,
And as it bled over into their politics, as Genevieve mentioned, it also didn't work out for the Brazilian economy either. So
Good point.
I
for me
think
it's creepy. It's terrible because sorry, Jean. I
no,
just
no,
just
no.
wanted to say that it's terrible because religion controlling economy and other teams and things that they shouldn't. It scares me.
Yeah, yeah. And as we'll cover in our fourth segment, it doesn't always work out the best. But I was just going to say that something that many people find beautiful about sports is that it is kind of this cultural unifier where it doesn't really matter what your religion or your race or your socioeconomic status is. If you're from a place, you root for your team, and it's sort of this nice sort of break from all of the other various strifes that we have in daily life. It's a really nice reprieve, and it's so funny that they're sort of ruining that in a sense, not letting people on their team because they don't believe in the same religion. I'm sorry, that's I myself am not a huge soccer fan either, but that feels like kind of a blow, especially for that sport, which for so many nations, it is sort of this universal national pastime. You might play soccer with people who speak 20 different languages, but you all speak the language of the game. I don't know why you need to, inject this sort of, ironically, like this persecution that they were complaining about themselves.
And you brought up something that was really interesting, and it kind of it sparked a thought in my head, because initially at the beginning of the article, there was a whole discussion, I believe it was, how the Dutch national team contacted FIFA or the Olympics and had complained about one of the Brazilian players kind of making this statement of faith. I mean, sure, they're private institutions, they set their own rules, yada yada. But what do y'all think? Teo, do you think it's right that in these types of places we try to keep it as secular as possible, or should we allow everybody to kind of, you know, show up their religious flag or do their religious ritual at the end?
No, all the opposite. For me, sorry, G, but soccer divides people a lot in their different teams. They start wars amongst them sometimes. So I don't know if they really unify that much. And after you
Very
have
true.
that division already, adding your personal life, because religion should be personal. You shouldn't be talking about your religion everywhere, and your personal life shouldn't be part of either if you get hired for the team or not, if you get chosen for the team or not. So no, religion sorry, religion should be personal. You should keep that to yourself, and you shouldn't try to impose it on other people. That what I feel that this guy is doing when he goes to the team and gives them a Bible and tries to talk about their Lord and Savior Jesus. That is trying to impose your religion onto others, and I consider that totally wrong.
Yeah. Kelley, what are your thoughts?
I'm thinking that religion mixed with football is probably a really bad recipe. I mean, you know, that's what I'm thinking. I totally agree with everybody, though. Bringing some religion into a place like this is really not the thing to do, because we already have these divisions. Because I'm rooting for the home team, and adding religion into that just isn't going to make anything better.
Now, I thought, you know, it was really interesting at the end when they focused on Paulino and how after he had scored a goal in last year's Olympics, that he made kind of this archer pose in reference to his spirit deity, Ushasi. And this is kind of a mixture of a handful of different cultures and religions of something called candomblé, and it's practiced in Brazil. What do you think about kind of taking that moment to have a stance and push back just a little bit against the overarching power of the evangelical church in this instance? Genevieve?
I mean, I personally, I just think that there are so many instances for athletes where they're obviously going to express their religious beliefs in one way or another, and I think that's perfectly fine. I mean, if you believe in Jesus or in another deity and you score a goal and, you know, you say a prayer, you look up to the sky, like, of, you know, why would I go so far as to restrict that? My big issue here was specifically with the spreading of the Bibles and sort of, you know, giving people trouble if they are not your brand of Christianity.
Yeah.
Um, but, you know, I think we need to allow athletes and players to have the freedom to express themselves, especially because if you've ever played really intense sports, I mean, a lot of time, I mean, you're putting your all in it. You should be able to sort of off the cuff celebrate in a way that is appropriate to you and your own spirituality. You know, I just like I think that athletes should be able to use their platforms to protest if they see fit. That's not the same thing as, you know, passing out literature and demonizing people who don't join them.
Good point.
Yep, I actually agree with that. I mean, yeah, if you want to celebrate your own way, go ahead, do it. Just don't impose this to others and don't, discriminate. Oh, this guy is not playing with us because whatever, because he has a tattoo and the Bible forbids it. I I just guess, well, I don't know if you have the same over there, but in here we say that we never talk about politics, soccer, or religion because those always divide. And Brazil is this strange mixture of the three of them together into one that, ooh, I wouldn't want to be there talking about those issues because it must be intense. I know that in Argentina, for example, soccer divides whole cities, whole regions inside a city. I don't want to even imagine how that is in Brazil. And once again, creepy. And yeah, we shouldn't mix them. But I do agree with G that if they want to express something personal, as long as they don't try to impose that onto others, I could agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's where my biggest issue was. I don't have a problem with the players gathering together in the hotel room before a match or after a match or whatever and praying, but there was a piece where one of the pastors apparently wasn't even supposed to be on the premises and still came in and did a whole ceremony and laying on hands and stuff. And it was a long time, so much so that they even ended up firing the head security guard or something. And I just feel like, religion or not, but gosh darn it, it does seem to always happen when religion's involved. When we're pushing those boundaries for one group of people and we're breaking the rules for one, ideology or group out there, and everybody else is, getting shafted, I never feel good about that. And that was definitely something that was coming through. It seemed to me by the time we got to the end of the article, there was a little bit of a hopefulness there, in the fact that there was a bit of a waning of the people involved. But Kelley, what do you think? Do you think it's enough to make a difference? Do you think, Brazil is finally gonna kind of see the other side of all of the things you're not supposed to talk about being together, or what?
Yeah, I don't have high hopes. I really don't, to be honest with you. Not at this point in time. And when I looked at the amount of people that had left the Catholic Church and become a part of an evangelical church over since all of this started happening with the football team, and it was like 30%. 30% of the population, and that's huge. And when I see people torn into that more toxic form of Christianity, it really doesn't give me any hope. So, unfortunately.
Genevieve, what are your thoughts?
My final thought on this, because I'm not nearly educated enough to sort of speak on the trajectory of religion in Brazil in its entirety, but at the end of the day, I can't believe that these guys think that their God cares so much about who wins a damn, soccer game. It's kind of that classic joke, right? Like, I know there's starving people dying all over the world, but please, God, let the Packers win this weekend. I mean,
Yeah.
he works
God,
in mysterious ways.
that's right. That's what it is. It's very mysterious. Teo, you want to wrap us up?
Totally mysterious. I guess G and Kelley said everything already, and so far, once again, for me it's a little bit scary to see that how powerful religion is over there. It's awful, and Brazil has a lot of poor people, and I mean a lot of poor people. And all those people go to these mega churches and they give all the money that they can give every Sunday or Saturday, depending. And it saddens me. It saddens me when you see a huge mega church surrounded by favelas, those very poor places. And that mega church was built with money that came out of those favelas, and they are extremely poor, and they have this huge building that they are praising, and it's part of their lives, and they see it as totally normal, and it's not a problem to see their religion even in their soccer games. I do believe that they should be separated, and I hope that that they can change in future. But for now, as you said, they chose Bolsonaro because he was religious, so I don't have much hope.
Hey, I'm okay with promoting the separation of religion and government and the separation of religion and sports. I mean, that seems fine with me. I don't see why we can't have it.